You may think you exist as a separate, distinct individual with your own thoughts, feelings, and identity. But what if I told you that everything you believe about who you are is an illusion? The concept of self that you hold so tightly to may not be real at all. This realization may sound unsettling, but it's the key to true freedom. By uncovering the truth that yourself is just a construct, you can unlock a life of peace and clarity that goes beyond the limitations of your current understanding. Once you see through the illusion, you'll realize that what you thought was your reality is merely a shadow of a deeper truth. Imagine for a moment that your identity is like a dream. When you're in the dream, everything feels real: the sights, the sounds, the emotions. But when you wake up, you realize it was all just an illusion. Similarly, the idea of you is like that dream. It's a collection of thoughts, memories, and beliefs that your mind has created, but it isn't your true essence. And just like waking up from a dream, realizing this truth can be both shocking and liberating. It can free you from the mental and emotional prisons that have kept you trapped for so long. So, what happens when you recognize this illusion? You begin to see that the things you've worried about, the struggles you've faced, and the limitations you've believed in are all rooted in this false idea of self. Without it, you're free to experience life in a whole new way, without the burdens and constraints that used to weigh you down. The illusion of self has been the source of your suffering, but it doesn't have to be. Once you see through it, you'll discover a boundless freedom that was always there, waiting for you to notice. Now, let's talk about why this realization is so important. If you continue to believe in the illusion of self, you will remain stuck in a cycle of suffering, stress, and limitation. The idea of you creates separation from the world around you, making you feel isolated and alone. It convinces you that you are an individual with a life story that defines you, and that your worth is tied to your achievements, failures, and relationships. This belief in the self traps you in a constant struggle to protect and defend an identity that doesn't actually exist. Think about the times when you felt anxious, afraid, or insecure. These feelings often stem from the fear that something will threaten your sense of self, your reputation, your status, or your relationships. But if you look deeper, you'll see that these fears are based on the belief that you are a separate entity that needs to be preserved and protected. This belief drives many of the choices you make and the way you interact with the world. It's like being trapped in a never-ending battle, constantly trying to defend an illusion. But what if you didn't have to fight that battle anymore? What if you could let go of the need to protect this false identity and simply be? By recognizing the illusion of self, you can free yourself from the chains of fear, anxiety, and stress. You can live without the constant pressure to prove yourself or to fit into a certain mold. Instead of being driven by the need to protect your identity, you can be guided by a deeper sense of peace and connection with the world around you. This shift in perspective is not just a small change, it's a complete transformation of how you experience life. The stakes are high because believing in the illusion of self keeps you in a state of separation and suffering. But when you see through it, you open the door to true freedom, a freedom that is not dependent on external circumstances, but is rooted in the realization of your true nature. Let's dive deeper into the concept of the illusion of self. What does it really mean to say that the self is an illusion? At its core, this idea challenges the very foundation of how we see ourselves and the world. The self, as we commonly understand it, is a collection of thoughts, emotions, memories, and beliefs that we identify with. We say, "This is who I am," and we build our lives around this idea. But what if this self is nothing more than a mental construct, an idea created by the mind to make sense of the world? The truth is, there is no fixed, permanent self. The you that you think you are is constantly changing, shaped by experiences, environment, and thoughts. One moment you may feel confident, and the next, insecure. One day you may see yourself as successful, and the next, as a failure. This fluctuation shows that the self is not a solid entity, but a fluid, ever-changing concept. Yet, we cling to it as if it were real, as if it defines our entire existence. This illusion of self is reinforced by society, culture, and even our own minds. We are taught from a young age to define ourselves by our name, our job, our relationships, and our achievements. But all of these things are external labels, they are not who you truly are. The self is like a mask that we wear, but it's not our true face. And just like a mask, it can be removed to reveal what lies beneath. When you start to see the self as an illusion, you begin to question the stories you've told yourself about who you are. You realize that you are not the sum of your thoughts, emotions, or experiences. These are just passing phenomena that come and go, like clouds in the sky. The real you is something much deeper, something that cannot be defined by words or concepts. It is the awareness that observes all of these changing experiences, but is not itself changed by them. This realization can be both freeing and disorienting. It can feel like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, as everything you thought you knew about yourself is called into question. But this is the beginning of a profound transformation. By letting go of the illusion of self, you can connect with a deeper truth, a truth that is not bound by the limitations of the mind or the labels of society. This truth is your true nature, and it is beyond anything you can imagine. Now that we've explored the concept of the illusion of self, let's take a closer look at how this illusion plays out in your everyday life. The belief in a separate self doesn't just exist in your mind, it shapes the way you interact with the world, the decisions you make, and the emotions you experience. This illusion is the root cause of many of the struggles and conflicts you face on a daily basis. For example, think about the times when you felt hurt or offended by someone else's words or actions. What is it that gets hurt? It's your sense of self, your ego. When someone criticizes you or rejects you, it feels like an attack on who you are. But if you see through the illusion of self, you'll realize that there is no real you to be hurt. The pain comes from identifying with this false self and taking everything personally. Once you stop identifying with the ego, you'll find that these situations no longer have the power to disturb your peace. The illusion of self also affects your relationships. When you see yourself as a separate individual, you naturally see others as separate from you as well. This creates a sense of division and conflict. You may feel the need to compete with others, to defend your position, or to seek approval and validation. But this only leads to more suffering, as you constantly measure yourself against others and worry about how you are perceived. When you recognize that the self is an illusion, you can let go of these comparisons and judgments. You can relate to others from a place of compassion and understanding, rather than competition and fear. Even the way you approach your goals and ambitions is influenced by the illusion of self. You may feel driven to achieve success, accumulate wealth, or gain recognition because you believe these things will enhance your sense of self. But no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like enough, because the self is a bottomless pit that can never be truly satisfied. By seeing through the illusion, you can free yourself from this endless cycle of striving and instead pursue your goals from a place of inner contentment and purpose. The illusion of self is like a lens that distorts your view of reality. It makes you see the world in terms of me and mine, creating a constant sense of struggle and separation. But once you remove this lens, you can see things as they truly are, interconnected, whole, and free from the limitations of the ego. This shift in perception can transform every aspect of your life, bringing you a sense of peace and fulfillment that you've never known before. Recognizing the illusion of self is not just about avoiding suffering, it's also about opening yourself up to a whole new way of being. When you let go of the false self, you make room for profound positive changes in your life. The benefits of this realization go far beyond what you might expect. One of the most immediate benefits is a sense of inner peace. Without the constant need to defend and protect your ego, you can finally relax. The worries and anxieties that used to plague you begin to fade away, because they were all tied to the illusion of self. You no longer have to prove anything to anyone, and you stop taking things so personally. This peace isn't just a temporary state, it's a deep, unshakable calm that comes from knowing that your true essence is beyond the ups and downs of life. Another benefit is a greater sense of connection with others and the world around you. When you stop seeing yourself as separate, you begin to experience the unity that underlies all of existence. You feel more empathy and compassion for others because you recognize that their struggles are not so different from your own. This connection also extends to nature and the universe as a whole. You feel a deep sense of belonging and oneness with everything, and this brings a profound sense of joy and fulfillment. Letting go of the illusion of self also frees you from the need for external validation. You stop seeking approval from others because you realize that your worth is not dependent on what anyone else thinks. This liberates you to live authentically and make choices that are aligned with your true values, rather than trying to please others or fit into societal expectations. You become more confident and self-assured, not because of any external achievements, but because you are grounded in the truth of who you really are. Recognizing the illusion of self allows you to experience life more fully. When you are not caught up in the stories of the ego, you can be present in each moment without the distractions of fear, worry, or desire. This presence brings a richness and depth to your experiences that you may have never noticed before. You find joy in the simple things, and every moment becomes an opportunity for growth and discovery. Ultimately, realizing the illusion of self opens the door to true freedom. You are no longer bound by the limitations of the ego, and you can live from a place of wholeness and clarity. This freedom is not just a fleeting feeling, it is a lasting transformation that changes the way you see yourself and the world. It allows you to navigate life with grace, wisdom, and compassion, and to find meaning and purpose in every experience. Understanding that the self is an illusion is one thing, but how do you begin to actually recognize this truth in your own life? The process of seeing through the illusion of self involves both introspection and practical steps that you can take on a daily basis. It's a journey of self-discovery that requires patience, commitment, and an open mind. The first step is to start questioning your thoughts and beliefs about who you are. Take a moment to reflect on the idea that your identity is just a collection of thoughts and experiences that your mind has assembled over time. Ask yourself, who am I, really? Go beyond the surface answers, your name, your job, your roles, and try to find the essence of who you are. You may find that there is no solid self to be found, just a stream of thoughts and sensations that are constantly changing. Meditation is a powerful tool in this process. By sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without attachment, you begin to see how they come and go, and how none of them truly define you. Meditation helps you develop the awareness that you are not your thoughts, but the observer of them. This shift in perspective can be the key to recognizing the illusion of self. Another practical step is to become aware of how the ego operates in your daily life. Notice when you feel the need to defend yourself, prove yourself, or seek approval. These are signs that the ego is at play. Instead of reacting to these impulses, take a step back and observe them. Ask yourself, what am I trying to protect or prove? Is this really who I am? By bringing awareness to these moments, you can start to see through the ego's tricks and recognize them for what they are, just patterns of thought, not your true self. It can also be helpful to practice detachment from the labels and identities you've built around yourself. Start by letting go of the need to define yourself by your job, your possessions, or your relationships. These things are not who you are, they are just temporary aspects of your life. When you detach from these external identities, you create space for your true self to emerge. This doesn't mean that you stop caring about your life or the people in it, it simply means that you stop identifying with them as the source of your worth and identity. Finally, embrace the practice of self-inquiry. This involves regularly asking yourself deep, probing questions about the nature of your existence. Questions like, who am I beyond my thoughts and emotions? Or what is the nature of my awareness, can help guide you towards the realization that the self is an illusion. The more you inquire, the more you will begin to see the truth behind the illusion, and the more free you will become. This process of recognizing the illusion of self is not something that happens overnight. It requires dedication and a willingness to see beyond the surface of things. But with practice, you can begin to experience the profound peace and freedom that comes from living without the burden of the ego. As you begin to explore the illusion of self, it's natural to encounter challenges and fears along the way. The idea that the self doesn't exist as you've always believed can be unsettling, even frightening. After all, your identity has been a central part of your life for as long as you can remember. Letting go of it can feel like stepping into the unknown, and this can trigger a range of emotions, from confusion to fear. One of the most common fears is the loss of identity. You may worry, if I'm not who I think I am, then who am I? This fear of losing yourself can create resistance to the idea that the self is an illusion. It's important to recognize that this resistance is normal. Your mind has spent years building up the idea of who you are, and it won't let go of that easily. But remember, letting go of the illusion of self doesn't mean you stop existing. It means you begin to see your true nature, which is much more expansive and free than the limited identity you've held onto. Another challenge is the fear of losing control. The ego thrives on control. It wants to manage every aspect of your life to protect itself. When you start to dismantle the ego, it can feel like you're losing control of your life. This can lead to anxiety and uncertainty. But in reality, letting go of control is a key step towards freedom. When you stop trying to control everything, you allow life to flow naturally, and you begin to trust in the deeper intelligence that guides the universe. This can lead to a sense of ease and peace that is far greater than the temporary comfort of control. You may also encounter feelings of isolation or loneliness as you confront the illusion of self. As you start to see through the ego's games, you may feel disconnected from those around you who are still deeply identified with their own egos. This can be a challenging experience, but it's also an opportunity to deepen your connection with your true self. Remember that you are never truly alone. Your journey is shared by countless others who are also waking up to the truth of who they are. Seek out like-minded individuals and communities where you can share your experiences and find support. Finally, there may be a fear of emptiness. The ego often equates the loss of self with a sense of nothingness or void. This can be a frightening prospect. But what you will find is that beyond the illusion of self is not emptiness, but fullness, a fullness that is rich with peace, joy, and connection. The emptiness the ego fears is actually the spaciousness of your true nature, a space that is filled with infinite possibilities. Throughout history, many spiritual teachers and enlightened individuals have spoken about the realization that the self is an illusion. Their stories offer powerful examples of what is possible when you let go of the false self and embrace your true nature. These examples can serve as inspiration and guidance on your own journey. One such example is the Buddha, who famously taught that the self is a construct of the mind and that clinging to it is the source of suffering. Through his own journey of self-discovery, the Buddha realized that liberation comes from seeing through the illusion of self and recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. His teachings have inspired millions to seek freedom from the ego and find peace in the truth of their existence. Another example is the Indian sage Ramana Maharshi, who taught the practice of self-inquiry as a means to realize the illusion of self. He often asked his followers to meditate on the question, "Who am I?" This simple yet profound practice led many to the realization that the self is not the body, mind, or personality, but the pure awareness that underlies all experience. Ramana's life was a testament to the peace and serenity that comes from recognizing this truth. Contemporary teacher Eckhart Tolle also speaks extensively about the illusion of self. In his book The Power of Now, Tolle describes how he awakened to the realization that his thoughts and ego were not his true self. This awakening freed him from years of depression and anxiety, and he now shares this message with others, helping them to see through the illusions that cause suffering. These stories show that the realization of the illusion of self is not just a philosophical concept, it's a lived experience that can transform your life. By learning from those who have walked this path before you, you can gain the courage and insight needed to continue your own journey. Their examples remind you that freedom is possible and that the peace you seek is already within you. Once you begin to recognize the illusion of self, the next step is to integrate this understanding into your everyday life. This is where the real transformation happens. It's not enough to simply understand the concept intellectually, you need to live it in your daily interactions, decisions, and experiences. One way to do this is by practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness involves staying present in each moment and observing your thoughts, emotions, and actions without attachment. When you practice mindfulness, you can catch yourself when the ego tries to take control. For example, if you find yourself getting defensive or reactive in a conversation, pause and ask yourself, is this my true self reacting, or is it the ego? By bringing awareness to these moments, you can choose to respond from a place of presence rather than ego. Another way to integrate this realization is by letting go of the need for external validation. When you stop identifying with the ego, you no longer need others to validate your worth. This can be incredibly liberating. Instead of seeking approval or fearing rejection, you can act from a place of authenticity and inner confidence. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others, it means you care more deeply, without being attached to their opinions of you. Living with the awareness that the self is an illusion also means embracing uncertainty. Life is full of unknowns, and the ego loves to create stories to make sense of them. But when you see through the ego, you can let go of the need to have all the answers. You can trust in the flow of life and allow things to unfold naturally. This brings a sense of peace and ease, even in challenging situations. Finally, integrate this realization by cultivating compassion for yourself and others. Recognizing the illusion of self helps you see that everyone is on their own journey, often driven by their own egos and illusions. This understanding can lead to greater empathy and kindness. Instead of reacting with judgment or anger, you can respond with compassion, knowing that everyone is doing the best they can with the awareness they have. In this journey of realizing the illusion of self, you've taken the first steps towards a deeper understanding of who you truly are. This path is not always easy, but it is profoundly rewarding. By letting go of the false self, you open yourself up to a life of peace, joy, and connection that goes beyond anything the ego could offer. As you continue on this journey, remember that the freedom you seek is already within you. It's not something you need to achieve or attain, it's simply a matter of seeing through the illusions that have been clouding your vision. Each moment is an opportunity to let go of the ego's grip and step into the truth of your being. Embrace the challenges, the fears, and the unknowns that come with this process. They are all part of the unfolding of your true self. Trust in the wisdom of life, and know that you are exactly where you need to be. The more you release the illusion of self, the more you will discover the boundless freedom and peace that is your true nature. And as you walk this path, may you find the courage to let go, the clarity to see the truth, and the compassion to live from the heart. The illusion of self is just that, an illusion. And once you see through it, you will be free.